The Galactic Defense Academy had trained warriors from 200 species across 3 spiral arms. Its halls had echoed with the John cries of the Crethean berserkers, the calculated precision of synthetic minds, and the disciplined formations of the Velk Empire. But never in its 4-century history had it encountered a problem quite like this. Instructor Valine stood rigid in the training hall, her 4 eyes fixed on a sight that violated every protocol she held sacred. 3 Rickian cubs, each no larger than a human child, sat nestled in Sergeant Mara Corrin's chair. Not their assigned seats, not the reinforced cushions designed for their species. The human's chair. Cubs, I will not repeat myself. Valine's translator rendered her clicks into stern galactic standard. Return to your designated stations immediately. The cubs blinked up at her with wide golden eyes. The smallest one, barely past his first molt, chirped something that made the other 2 trill with what could only be laughter. None of them moved. Valine's chromatic plates flushed deep purple, a color that had sent seasoned cadets scrambling. This is your final warning. Discipline is the foundation of survival. You dishonor your pack and they're fine where they are, instructor. Sergeant Mara Corrin's voice cut through the tension like a thermal blade through ice. The human sat, cross-legged on the floor beside her own chair. A datapad balanced on her knee, seemingly unconcerned that 3 alien children had commandeered her furniture. Valine's translator crackled with the intensity of her response. Sergeant Corrin, with respect, this is unacceptable. The cubs must learn boundaries, structure. Your permissiveness undermines the entire training protocol. Mara looked up, her brown eyes calm. Does it? Yes. Valine gestured with 2 of her 6 limbs. In 4 rotations, these cubs will join their first pack exercise. If they cannot follow simple commands now, how will they respond under combat conditions? How will they? The smallest cub interrupted with a soft whimper. Immediately, Mara's hand moved, not toward the cub but to her side pouch. She produced a small warming pad and passed it up to the little one without looking away from Valine. The cub took it, pressed it against his chest, and his whimpering stopped. Valine fell silent. You were saying? Mara asked gently. The instructor's translator remained quiet for a long moment. Finally, the cubs are 3 solar cycles from their mother dens. Rickian protocol states they should adapt through exposure to stress, isolation, and rigid hierarchy. I've read the manual. Mara stood, brushing dust from her uniform. I've also read the casualty reports from the last 5 Rickian cohorts. 40% psychological breakdown before graduation. 60% attrition within 2 years of active service. Valine's plates shifted to a defensive gray. Those numbers are expected for a warrior species in development. Are they? Mara walked to her chair, where 3 pairs of eyes tracked her movement with absolute trust. She didn't ask them to move. Instead, she perched on the armrest. Or are they the result of taking children barely out of infancy and treating them like soldiers? They are cubs of the Rickian Confederacy. They are born for... They're babies, Valine. The word hung in the air. In Galactic Standard, it had no direct military application, no tactical value. It was simply what it was. Mara continued, her voice still gentle but now carrying an edge. They're babies who've been taken from everything familiar and dropped into an environment designed to break adults. And you're surprised they're climbing into the first lap that feels safe? I do not offer laps, Valine said stiffly. No, you don't. Mara's hand absently stroked the head of the middle cub, who had begun to doze. Humans do. It's kind of our thing. This is not efficient, it does not build warriors, doesn't it? Mara tilted her head. Let me tell you about human military history, instructor. We've been fighting wars since before we had words for them. And you know what we learned? The soldiers who fight hardest aren't the ones trained through fear and isolation. They're the ones who have something to protect, someone who made them feel safe when they were small. Valine's translator emitted a sound like rustling leaves, confusion. But the cubs must learn independence. They will, but not by being abandoned. Mara looked down at the 3 small forms. The largest cub had moved from the chair to lean against her leg. Humans have a saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. These cubs are running on empty. So yes, they can sit in my chair. They can stay close when drills get too loud. They can ask questions without being told to observe and adapt. And when they face actual combat, when the enemy does not care for their feelings, Mara's expression hardened, just for a moment. Then they'll remember that someone once did, and they'll fight like hell to get back to that feeling. She paused. You've seen the human combat psych profiles, haven't you? Valine's plates flickered with acknowledgement. Then you know we're not the strongest species, not the fastest. We don't have natural armor or venom or telepathic coordination. Mara's voice dropped lower. But we have something that's kept us alive through ice ages, plagues and wars that should have ended us. We take care of our own, even the small ones, especially the small ones. The training hall's main doors hissed open. A group of senior cadets entered for the next rotation. Velk, Krethian, and 2 humans. They stopped short at the scene. Sergeant Corin, one of the human cadets, ventured. Are the Cubs joining the advanced tactics session? Not today, Davies. They're attending Chair Acquisition 101. Mara smiled. Seems to be going well. Several cadets snorted with laughter. Even the Krethian, whose species considered humor a weakness, made a sound like grinding stone that might have been amusement. Valine watched the exchange, her translator silent. The Cubs had noticed the newcomers and pressed closer to Mara, but they didn't flee. The smallest one chirped a greeting. Davies crouched down, making himself less threatening. Hey there, little warrior. That's a nice chair you've got, the cub trilled proudly. Permission to let them stay during the session? Davies asked Mara. We could use small unit coordination practice. Cubs make excellent mobile objectives. Before Valine could protest, Mara nodded. Granted, but they stay near my station, non-negotiable. Understood, Sergeant. As the cadets began setting up, Valine approached Mara privately. You undermine my authority. You disregard established protocols. You treat military training like what? Mara asked quietly. Like raising young. Because that's what it is, instructor. At least at this stage. Mara met her gaze. You can teach tactics later. Right now you teach them that the galaxy has safe places, that some chairs are meant for climbing into, that when the instructors command them to stay back, sometimes the right answer is to move forward anyway, toward the human who'll catch them. Valine stood silent for a long time. Finally, her plates shifted to a thoughtful blue. Human training methods are unconventional. Yeah. We also have a 97% graduation rate and the lowest combat psychological breakdown in the academy. I have noticed the statistics. Valine turned to leave, then paused. The Cubs may remain, for now. But they must begin standard drills by next rotation. Deal. I'll make sure they're ready. As Valine departed, the smallest cub climbed fully into Mara's lap, warming pad still clutched to his chest. He looked up at her and chirped. A question, maybe, or just a sound of contentment. Mara smiled. Yeah, little warrior, you're safe here. In 4 rotations, those cubs would begin their first pack exercises. In 6 months, they'd graduate. In 2 years, they'd serve on the front lines of a war that had consumed a dozen species. But today, right now, they were just 3 small creatures in a chair too big for them, learning the first and most important lesson of the human military doctrine. Before you can fight for something, you have to know what it feels like to be protected. The session began, and the cubs stayed exactly where they were.